October Cauldron Song. Season of socks and scarlet dusk, season of ghost, apple and yearning, season of wood fire, wind and witch ash, season of burning, sleep, season of bramble dark and russet, season of crisp and creeping chill, season of gloves and wishful candles, season of gold and falling still, season of forest fox and waiting, season of harvest, spice and grain, season of scarf and mud and singing, season of hearth and smoke and rain.
Hi everybody, I'm Nikki Gamble from Just Imagine, and thank you to Laura Theis, who is the poet of Poems from a Witch's Pocket. We're going to be hearing lots from her this evening, and she has summoned us to this ghastly gathering this evening. So I hope you're ready for all kinds of thrills, shock, horror, spookiness, and a little bit of humour in there as well. So Laura, you kicking us off with your new poetry collection. Do you have a copy there so we can just see
Yes,
the book?
I've kind of dressed up to match the cover.
Fantastic. And I hope you notice that this evening I am the queen of darkness.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I wanted to start just by saying, before we introduce our other panelists, because we're going to be joined by Michelle Robinson, Christopher Edge, and Jack McKay. But before they do join us, I wanted to have a couple of words with you about your collection. It's an absolutely superb poetry collection. It's one in which there's an empathy for nature and the natural world that runs all the way through. So when we talk about Poems from a Witch's Pocket, it's more to do with the wise woman witch than it is to do with the black witch on the broomstick, that kind of stereotypical witch. And it's also imbued, I think, with a sense of sisterhood and womanhood, but sisterhood in all of its guises, even when there's that kind of competitive edge to it, which we all know. Tell us a little bit about you as a poet and how you came to write this collection.
So it's my very first collection for children. So I've written a couple of books before that, just kind of regular poetry collections. And then this one came about because I saw a call for submissions from the Emma Press for a poetry collection for children. And so I looked at I've always enjoyed writing about like magical themes and, like you say, like nature and things inspired by fairy tales, um, and that's how I kind of started to look at my poems in a different way, where I was like, actually, I think a lot of them would work for a children's collection, and then so I wrote more, and I love this idea of having a collection that's kind of everything collected is things that have fallen out of the witch's pocket, that's spells or to-do lists or like just an ad that she picked up for like a poison hex or something like that. And and it's all kind of things that would have fallen out of the pocket, little letters, and collect that all in a book.
With that in mind, could I just ask you to read one more poem about things that are in the witch's pocket? It's the menagerie poem.
Yes, so a short little poem called Menagerie. Menagerie. I carry a small menagerie in my pocket. Labradorite, wolfenite, mookite jasper, tiger iron. I marvel at their stony wildness, pet their smooth, round heads. That's a little
Short but very
illustrator.
sweet. And these are actual real minerals that
Yeah.
exist, all with these animal related names. Actually, I think Michelle probably lives somewhere near Labrador, but I could be wrong. I think Labrador and Nova Scotia are quite close together, but I could be completely wrong there. Anyway, Laura, we're going to hear more poems a little later, but I do want to bring our other panelists in now. I've got a special request for you later as well for another poem, but
Okay.
let's welcome everybody here. So, Michelle Robinson, Christopher Edge, Jack McKay, I hope you appreciate the lengths they've gone to this evening to make you feel very Halloweenish. Where did you get your pirate hat, Jack?
I realised that everyone else had done such a good job with their costumes and their setting that I panicked and ran downstairs to ask my girlfriend if she had anything in the house that I could wear. And she said, there's a pirate hat in the wardrobe. And I went, brilliant, and then ran away. And so this is my hat for the day. It's very, very scary, I'm sure, in the Halloween spirit. But do some imagination. I've got an eye patch and a parrot and the whole get-up as well.
Fantastic. Great to have a girlfriend that has everything in their closet.
Exactly.
So a bit like a witch's pocket, we can rustle up anything whenever.
Yeah. Poems from my girlfriend's wardrobe is the upcoming collection from me.
So just to start us off, we're going to hear more about your books in a little while. But Michelle, is Halloween a time of the year that you like?
I love Halloween. I think it's the best. I love autumn. They call it fall here. As you said, I'm in Nova Scotia. And yeah, it's just gorgeous. I love anything when you get to wear woolly jumpers. It's just gorgeous. I really love it. I saw a mole this morning. I actually saw a mole crossing the trail. I was out for a walk and it just felt like only in autumn can you see something as random as a mole shuffling through leaves. And Halloween is just the best. I love spooky things. I love spooky books, even though I write generally quite happy, silly stories. I have this is a small amount of my ghost story books. They sit around the house all year, and in autumn I kind of get them out and put I just make sure wherever I'm sitting there's a ghost story book near me. Just love them.
Well, hopefully we've got time for some recommendations at the end of this evening. Chris, do you like Halloween?
It's a very busy time of year for me because there's lots of chocolate and sweet related crime. They have to sweep the street. Oh no, sorry, I'm not Batman, am I? No, yeah. Yes, I love Halloween. Although I always think it's kind of getting chocolate with menaces. So I'm not sure that I quite culturally agree with it.
I couldn't agree more.
Chris, I reckon you're one of those people that turns the light off and pretends you're not in.
You've got me to a T, Nikki. Yes, I'm sorry. No, we do carve a pumpkin. We put it out. We get the celebrations in, and then it's just a matter of willpower to stop me eating them before the children arrive at the doors to ask them kindly.
Chris, sorry, I'm calling everybody Chris now. Jack, you look as though you were made for Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, my feeble costuming aside, yeah, I do love Halloween. It's sort of the best season for me anyway. I mean, I love horror stuff in general, and Halloween seems to be where it all comes out at the same time. So there's never an end to the kind of horror movies or horror stories that happen. But just the weather, something about the weather. Everything's getting darker, everything's getting colder. The feeling of being sort of indoors with all your Halloween lights on with Dracula on or something. It's just it's just the best feeling ever.
You mentioned Dracula. Okay,
yes.
So I'm going to ask you. I'm going to actually just take this off so I can put my glasses on because it's important for the next bit. I'm going to ask each of you to give us a film recommendation. And although we're all children's writers and commentators here, the film doesn't have to be for children, but maybe in case there are some children watching, we'll just signal if it's got a certificate as well. So, Chris, your favourite?
I think there's so many I could have chosen from things like The Others and things like that, but I'm going to go for the 1980s teen vampire movie classic, The Lost Boys, because as well as being an amazing movie with Kiefer Sutherland and Jason Patrick and classic lines like "I can't believe it, Michael, my own brother's a goddamn vampire," it's also got a banging soundtrack with In Excess and Echo and the Bunnymen on. So that is my recommendation for the Halloween movie.
Yours is quite different, Laura. Tell us your Halloween film pick.
Yes, so I am actually a little bit of a chicken when it comes to horror films. I get quite scared, so I didn't. Mine is not a horror film, really. It's Practical Magic. It's a film about kind of.
Don't worry, we've lost
With
Laura
Sandra Bullock
temporarily, but I'm sure she's going to be back. So Practical Magic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, don't worry. You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Michelle, what about
Yes,
you?
I've picked
Sandra Bullock and
Hocus Pocus.
sorry.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus
I do love all scary things, but as I've gotten older, I find scary films too scary now. I don't know what happened. I got older and I just don't like being scared as much. But I love Hocus Pocus. I just think it's a joy. I love the actresses who play the witches. It's really kind of nostalgic. And again, it's my favorite bit about Halloween is the kind of the autumn colors and it's dark early and like the lights and the atmosphere. I just love it. And it's kind of one of those, really. It's a real adventure that families can enjoy. And I like that about Halloween, that it's very family friendly. And here in Canada, actually, Halloween is really about family. It's not about the spooky stuff as much as we see it in the UK, where everyone's kind of dressed up as zombies. Here we get about 300 kids knock on our door, live in a tiny village, but everyone lives in the sticks, so they all come in so that there's more doors for them to knock. And you get kids dressed up as all kinds of things, nothing to do with spookiness, and it's just gorgeous. So Hocus Pocus for me.
Great fun. You won't like Jack's.
I have seen it.
You better just tell us that. Say it quickly, and we'll put our fingers in our ears.
I'm glad you've all said that some more chill ones, more cozy ones. Because if I had to choose a cozy one, I'd probably say something like Monster House, which is an incredible, like really, really cozy Halloweeny film. But my favorite horror film of all time is, and one of my favorite films of all time is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's very, very good, and it's kind of it conjures images of a huge amount of blood and violence, but really it's a surprisingly bloodless film, and it's more so about atmosphere and about dread and than anything else. And as a low budget film, I mean, what they were able to do and the way that they changed cinema forever, just so cool, and also very scary still.
Brilliant. I'm not going to put our poll up as I had intended, just because I think we haven't got enough time. But if we do at the end, I will put the poll up and see whether the audience agrees with you. But we're going to hear from Michelle in a moment. But to lead us into Michelle's book, Laura is going to read another poem.
Okay, so this is something that fell out of the witch's pocket, which was her to-do list. Party planning notes, pumpkin party. Find pumpkin seed in pantry. Careful not to confuse with dead bug look-alike again. Try out rapid growing hex until pumpkin is about bat size. If it doesn't work, time hop back to when you should have planted it in the first place. Plant, water, time hop back. Harvest pumpkin. Quick nap. Try out duplication charm 13 times. Make 12 bat-sized pumpkins to serve pumpkin soup in and 1 cat-sized pumpkin to serve pumpkin juice in. Maybe some extra ones to use as lanterns? Keep at least 1 seed for next year. Make pumpkin seed bread from the rest. Ask neighbors to bring pumpkin pie. Ask neighbors to bring extra pumpkins just in case.
There's a lot of pumpkins there in Laura's poem. And do you ever eat pumpkin yourself? Or do you just carve them? Yes.
Pumpkin pie, maybe. I had some the other day. It was Thanksgiving here the other day. Canadian Thanksgiving is earlier than American Thanksgiving. And my guests brought a pumpkin pie. And let's just say most of it was left at the end of the day. I think it's one of those things that you kind of do because it's traditional, but it doesn't really taste all that great. But yeah, and carving ones are different. You can't actually eat a carving pumpkin. They're just for carving. So yes, I'm always told that. I do carve them though. I like carving them.
And thank you for showing us the cover of the book there. Show it again, just while we read the title there. You are the pumpkin.
Tom Knight illustrated it. And Tom is just brilliant. It's so funny. I mean, look at his eyebrows. This pumpkin's eyebrows. They're like my dad's. They're just amazing. Yes, it's very cute pumpkin. Very slightly sinister in a kind of, if you were 5, you might find him sinister way, but I think you'd just laugh at him, really.
Well, of course, you do realise, Michelle, this is the highlight of the evening. It's going to go downhill after here. This is where we're going to have fun, and then we're just going to get scared.
And we can get dark.
So, very different. You've got the picture book, as you've shown us. And I think I'm going to start by just asking you to read it, if you would.
I would be delighted to read it. Ably assisted by my skeleton, who's in my background. This is The Pumpkin Who Stole Halloween. The scariest pumpkin the world's ever seen grew here on my windowsill last Halloween. It almost destroyed Trick or Treat as we know it. Kind of my fault, after all. I did grow it. I'd planted the seed in a cute little pot, watered it, sung to it, fed it a lot. Extra strength plant food. You need a light touch. Well, I didn't know that. I fed it too much. Its vines grew and grew all through summer. Oh gosh, when Halloween came, it was one giant squash. I carved it 2 eyes and a mouth, then, no joke, the pumpkin blinked twice, gave a cough, and then spoke. Me want, it declared, gazing out at our street. I figured it wanted to go trick or treat. It grabbed a huge bag. I said, crikey, you're keen. Me want, it repeated. Me want Halloween. My family came downstairs. We're ready. Oh, cool. Who's in that costume? Just someone from school? I elbowed the pumpkin and said, say hello. Me want, the pumpkin said. Awkward. Let's go. Looking back now, I'm not really sure why I thought it was wise to invite the big guy, but in my defence, there was no way of knowing. The pumpkin would just keep on growing and growing. Uh-oh. Truth is, I felt pretty good about now. The pumpkin was fun. All my neighbours said, wow, what a great costume. Here, take lots of candy. The treats kept on coming, and that was just dandy. But thanks to the pumpkin, they disappeared first. It took all the sweets at each house we went past. Each lolly, each gumble, each chocolate, each toffee, even the yucky ones flavoured with coffee. Blech. It took all the wrappers, containers and lids. Nothing was left for the rest of us kids. Me want, it said, moving on to decor, snatching toy spiders and ghosties galore. It grabbed model mummies and zombie parts too, and while it rampaged, it grew and it grew. Extra strength plant food is really intense. My pumpkin was massive, completely immense, an immense pumpkin. Big as a bicycle, big as a car, big as the bandstand. No, bigger by far. I wonder if you can see what's going on the bandstand. There's a Halloween costume competition. Uh-oh. Without even trying, it picked up a prize. The judge said, best costume in town. What a size. Me want, it said, stealing second prize too. And third. Did I stop it? Of course not. Would you? It took what it wanted. Fake broomsticks, fake bats, a fake plastic skeleton, 2 real black cats. The neighbourhood no longer looked Halloweeny. Nothing was left, thanks to that massive meanie. Me want Halloween! There's none left. This was bad. The pumpkin growled, me want, and eyed up. My dad! Oh no! Stop! I commanded. Do you think it listened? Its creepy vines slithered, its wicked eyes glistened. Bravo, Dad said. That is so realistic. Whoever's inside must be very artistic. We all waved our hands, stomped our feet and yelled, enough! You can't just go round taking all the good stuff. Put my dad down, I said. Start playing fair. But that greedy pumpkin did not want to share. Share? That was it. I had just a few treats, a half-empty bucket of chocolates and sweets. One in particular might do the trick. I could save Halloween, but I had to act quick. I rattled my bucket and yelled, trick or treat. I have popping candy. It's such fun to eat. Me want, the pumpkin said, taking the bait. It swallowed the bucket. I just had to wait. Boom! Its eyes widened. Kablam! It looked shaken. It dropped dear old Dad and the stuff it had taken. The pumpkin looked smaller. Me not want, it said. I told it, you could just say sorry instead. It didn't do that, but it stopped being mean and sheepishly helped as we started to clean. We put back the decor and shared out the treats, brought Halloween back to our neighbourhood streets. The pumpkin stuck round and it mended its ways. It turned a new leaf. It's quite pleasant these days. No, I'm growing more veggies. They'll turn out okay. My dad threw the extra strength plant food away. The pumpkin's behaving. There's nothing to fear. Uh-oh, can you see its vine sneaking into the bin? What's it grabbing? The extra strength plant food. I can't wait to go trick-or-treating this year. Can you see Tom Knight has drawn these amazing, massive, creepy carrots and Brussels sprouts. They are quite creepy, aren't they, Brussels sprouts? So yes, that was the pumpkin who stole Halloween. And look, the cats, those two real black cats have found the extra strength plant food too. I hope they don't grow massively. That would be quite worrying, wouldn't it?
Thank you so much. It's lovely to have story time, but I feel I need to go and sleep now. I'm kind of settled down and really comfy for the night, and we can't because we've got more to get through. Michelle, you're one of the few people whose rhyming stories I really enjoy.
Oh, thank
like
you.
a handful, and I feel that that's because you really help whoever's reading the book. If it's an adult, often it's an adult to a child, you really help them to know how to read that book. It scans for one thing, which
Thank
is
you.
great.
I try, yeah. It's hard because you also have to think about different accents and, you know, the different ways people pronounce things. I'm constantly telling myself off for trying to rhyme things like rain and again, because even I sometimes say again, you know, and I don't call rain Ren. So, you know, there's certain things that, you know, you do and you just think, are most people going to read this the way I intended? But yeah, that's like, you have to read aloud and you have to think about what will sound right in most people's mouths. But yeah, I love writing and I love writing rhymes. So that's a really nice compliment. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy them.
It's interesting to hear you talk about bearing in mind what it sounds like in other people's mouths. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I wondered whether when you're composing your rhyming stories, whether you are really writing them in your head. Do you have those words going around in your head before you even get to paper?
Yes, quite often. So sometimes I'll have a title that so I might know the title before I know what the story is, just because I like the words. I just love language, love playing with different words and thinking about what they sound like. So I keep notebooks everywhere and I'll just write down words that I like together and see what comes out of them. But I do find I walk a lot. The Trans-Canada Trail runs behind my house along the river. And I walk most days and I find the rhythm of my footsteps. I'm usually in my head kind of counting meter and sorting lines out and figuring stuff out. And I get quite a few woohoo moments on the trail. I must look very strange when I'm because I talk to myself out loud as well when I walk. So
I think we all do.
the best people do, I think.
So I also just want one more question, really, and that is that the design of the book also aids the reader,
Yes.
the adult reading the book aloud. Do you have an input into that? I'm looking at where the dialogue appears, but also the typography helps with emphasis.
It does.
Are you involved in that?
So I'll get to see roughs and I'll see the rough layout of where they've put things, usually when Tom or whoever I'm working with has kind of roughed it out in pencil. So you'll kind of know more like the art direction of the book. You might know whether this is going to be a full spread or vignettes, like little bits of story to tell, pictures to tell the story. I will usually say if I really think something's wrong. Like, so recently there was one I was sent and I thought the image needs flipping so that you know, the reveal of what happened kind of came on the wrong side of the page. I was like, how can we just like flip it? But I don't like telling the artist what to draw. I wouldn't like, if someone tells me what to write, it's like someone holding your wrist and say, do it this way. It's like, well, then that's your way, not my way. So I try and be very kind of hands off with the design unless I really feel strongly about something. I just kind of think that's their part of the job. And for them to find it joyful, I feel like they kind of need to put themselves into it rather than me. So, and I'm never disappointed. I'm very fortunate. I work with fantastic people. So, yeah, it's a
Fabulous.
treat.
I know there's a lot more that we could say, but we're going to have a shift of mood now, and we're getting a little bit darker. But before we hear from Christopher and Jack, Laura's going to read another poem that leads us into their segment, and the poem is called Refusal.
Refusal. To be perfectly honest, in recent years, I've grown quite fond of the indoors. How it keeps the weather out, for one thing. Camping in the damp of a deathly forest sounds terrific, of course. But I think there is something to be said for a dry bed with no creepy crawlies or snakes. You know what else I love about staying put? I mean, you name it. The soft chairs, the life expectancy, floating around in my giant bath. The only beasts one encounters here are either served roasted, at feasts, or chained up outdoors to keep us safe from intruders. Might that prophecy have been meant for someone else with a similar name in a neighboring kingdom? Just a funny coincidence, I'm sure. So really, I appreciate your efforts in reading out. I'm good here. No, really. Best of luck. Bye.
That leads us into thinking about camping. Just in case there was a little bit of sound interference there, I would just urge our audience this evening to also get hold of a copy of those poems because they are beautiful. And if some of the words dropped out, you really need to read them for yourself. Camping Jack.
Yes.
No, camping Chris.
Yep.
Chris first.
Yes.
Camping. I'm going to segue into your book and ask you to, in 1 minute, tell us about it.
Well, Theis Hide and Seek is the very first file to be leaked from the Dark Archive, which is a top secret database of the strange and unexplained. And in Theis Hide and Seek, we hear about Adam's worst ever camping trip with his best friend Sol. And they discover a strange abandoned ghost town and find themselves playing a very strange and very scary game of hide and seek. But who or what is trying to find them? And can Adam stay one step ahead of the Itter? So that's that.
You've done a really good job there. I'm coming to get you.
Ready or not, here it comes. Yes.
Ah, that's awesome.
Fantastic. I love it. And, you know, Chris, you are so skilled at writing books that children want to read, real page turners. We recently launched an app in which children record their volitional reading. And I have to say that Christopher Edge books are popping up very frequently in that app. So you really know how to make readers, and it's a skill, and I really appreciate that. So from Fear Files, a very different book, but you get the prize for the best title, Gloam. Yes,
Ooh.
I love the word. Can you show us the book and introduce it to us?
Yes, I wish I could read it quite as eloquently as Chris did there, but it's a story about four siblings. I think the blur, sorry, is getting in the way. There it is. It's about four siblings who go to their late grandmother's house on the sort of bleak and rainy island of Gloam, and they're grieving the loss of their recent loss of their mother, and they're in the care of their stepdad Henry, who's trying his level best to raise four children and also stop the house from falling apart around them. And while he's getting a job on the mainland, he hires a babysitter to come and look after the kids. And her name is Esme Laverne. And she's very pretty, very smiley, and has yellow eyes. And she might not quite be all that she seems.
Fantastic. And it's such an atmospheric read. That was my favourite kind of book when I was growing up. There was a collection, I think, published by Puffin called the House on Nightmare Street.
Ooh.
I absolutely love it. It was just full of atmosphere and kind of classic ghost story feel. So I just wanted to have a bit of a chat with you about your books and points of connection and points of difference between them. I wonder, in terms of inspiration, because obviously I can see touchstones with a kind of Goosebumps type story in one respect, and other kinds of touchstones with yours, Jack. Are you more inspired by film or classic ghost stroke horror writers? I know it's not quite the same thing, but what inspires you most?
I'll let you go first.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think I'm similar to Michelle. As I've got older, I'm less kind of resistant to horror films. So when I was younger, happily go in and see something very scary, but I'm much less willing to nowadays. So I think I actually lean maybe towards more of the kind of the atmospheric, this kind of like, because it's interesting, because horror as a genre is interesting. I always talk to children and say it's a broad genre. You go from the suspense to the splatter, and I think I always lean more to the suspense side of horror. So I'm more horror fiction, but in its more suspenseful guise that I would reach to. But the one influence I take from films in terms of horror, I think, is probably from Steven Spielberg's Jaws, in terms of not showing the monster. So my kind of, like, when I talk to children about creative writing, I always say that the most frightening punctuation mark isn't the exclamation mark, it's the ellipsis. It's that ... where you let the reader do the work. And obviously Jack is a master of that with Gloam.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I mean, you're spot on when you say like the scariest things are the things that you don't see. We had conversations. Gloam has some wonderful illustrations from a guy called Ben Joel Price. That's an example of the one right at the very front. While we were talking about what kind of illustrations would go into the book, we were specific that we didn't want any of the monsters necessarily to have any sort of full page drawings or anything like that. All the monsters would be there'd be clues to them, but we wanted to leave it up to the imagination, because I think kids' imaginations tend to be very vivid, and it's always scarier if it's in your own head rather than on the page. But when it comes to inspirations, I'm such an annoying film buff, like probably the most annoying person in my friend group on that front. So I do take a lot of inspiration from film. When it comes to Gloam, it's less Texas Chainsaw Massacre for obvious reasons, and more things like I'm a big fan of the Coraline film, and just how tactile and atmospheric it is, like you say, Chris. I take huge inspiration from sort of suspense thrillers, Hitchcock suspense thrillers when I'm writing anything. But there's so much horror that I'm reading at the moment as well. Now that I've finished reading English at university, and I'm now reading for fun again and not just for my degree, reading things like authors like Shirley Jackson, who is just the absolute master of the ghost story. I think The Haunting of Hill House is one of the best ghost stories ever made, if not the best. And like Chris says, it's all about just the atmosphere is so palpable in those books, and you can almost feel like I'm a very visual person, but you can almost feel like it's playing out physically in front of you. So I'd like to say sort of fairly even spread, but I do watch a lot of films, probably too many.
I want to pick up things from from what both of you have said. I have to comment that it's just not right that you should be so young and so talented. I just want to put that out there. Not allowed. It's not allowed.
Oh, so you talked to Jack, aren't
you? Chris, I wanted to pick up on what you said about Jaws, okay, and not seeing the monster, but you hear the monster. The soundscape is what gives it to you. And I think there's a soundscape in your writing, actually. I wrote down these words. Then I hear the eerie sing-song voice, still counting as a shadow falls across the balcony. And then they count down, ready or not, here I come. We've got that auditory imagination. So the minute that you start talking about, we kind of know what that voice sounds like. Maybe children don't, they might not have seen as many horror films, but certainly as an adult reading it, I could hear that voice. Is soundscape important in your writing?
Oh, completely. I mean, I'm always incredibly jealous of illustrators because, you know, when an illustrator's working, they can listen to music and create these pictures. I'm someone who loves music, but can never listen to music while I'm writing of any type. I've even tried, ambient stuff, but because it just interferes with the rhythm of the words in my head. And rhythm is really important to me, and structure and pacing is really important to my story. So with something like Theis, Hide and Seek, which is, as you've said, is a very slender book, but it's the rhythm of the chapters and the flow of the chapters and the language is all part of this effort that I'm making as a writer to make a page turn, I think Theis, Hide and Seek is probably it's my 11th novel. And I've always before that written kind of page turning novels. But what's interesting with writing horror for the first time is you're trying to write a page turner, but you're also trying to engender an opposite emotion in the reader of someone they can't wait to turn the page, but they dread that turning the page too, because they're almost dreading what's going to happen. So sound and rhythm is really important in my writing. Yes.
Anything to add to that, Jack, about soundscape and writing, and particularly atmospheric writing?
Well, I mean, Chris does it so well. That just reading that passage aloud, sort of, I did actually feel a little bit of a shudder, which was, I was going to say unpleasant, but it is my bread and butter. I love it, love it, love it. It's soundscapes really. I'm really glad that you bring it up, because I feel like it sort of seems like something you wouldn't generally talk about when it comes to books, which are just, I suppose, a purely visual, imaginative medium. And like Chris says, it's so hard to focus whether you're writing or reading if there's sort of music in the background, or especially if there's music with lyrics. But I feel like because it is just words, you are trying and build a picture for people as much as you can, especially for young readers who, like I said earlier, have sort of very, very vivid imaginations. And you want to try and create as vivid a picture as you possibly can to really make sure they feel like they're in it. So Gloam is full of... The house in Gloam is almost a character unto itself, and I really wanted to fill it with sort of lots of creaking and lots of sort of there's a sort of howling of the wind and the rattling of the glass in the window panes, almost as if the house is sort of talking, not in a language that anyone could understand, which I suppose makes it maybe even slightly more unsettling. But I really wanted it to feel like, sound was the only way that it could really express itself, and the tree is I suppose a more explicit version of that, where it does seem to sort of gather wind around itself to sort of turn it into sound, and that's a very, very important part of the book.
Is it the I'm just trying to think, is it an M.R. James story, the one that has the ash tree that has the
Yes. He's an absolute master of that. He's an absolute master of not only of landscape, but the kind of, all five senses are always in M.R. James. Touch is like a key one as well in M.R. James. That kind of the sensation of the uncanny and the unnatural is something that comes through. But sound, game with the ash tree, is spot on, Nikki.
Yeah.
How on earth did you summon that book so quickly? That was amazing.
Yeah.
I've never seen you have the force.
I hadn't even planned that. That was just
wow.
It just emerged.
It's like the Bible to me. Yeah. Always at hand.
Jack, you talked about the house as a character. Funnily enough, that is one of the things I've written down here in my notes. The house's high windows look down at her. I can never read my writing. That's the only problem. Like a
stranger's eyes.
Thank you. Dark and inscrutable.
Yeah, I've been reading that chapter in school. I don't just know the book that well. I've been reading that chapter in schools recently. Yes, yeah. There's definitely a strong sense, and I mean there is more truth to it. I mean, for those who have read the book or are going to read the book, there is a little more truth to it, that the house is a character unto itself. But I will let you read and not spoil it for you.
So I'm not surprised really that you mentioned the haunting of the house. Look, I'm getting everything round the wrong way today, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I I wanted to talk a little bit about humour and spooky writing. You mentioned the film Coraline, Jack. So I don't know if you see that as a funny film in any way, or if it's just totally scary. I interviewed Neil Gaiman years ago, just after that book had been written, and we were talking about the different reception that adults and children, how that book is received by adults and by children. And he was saying the children see the humour in it, whereas adults don't see the humour. And he said, it's a very funny book. I see it as a very funny book. What about you?
Oh my gosh, probably would have to disagree with Neil there. Well, I think if I was 9, I think I would disagree, because I think that when I was 9, I was so frightened of it that I put it away and then didn't come back to it for a long time. I was sort of overpowered by the atmosphere, I think, to sort of really, really lean into the humor. But if anything, it's the inverse. The humor's really come through as I'm an adult. And you do get a sense of there's a kind of like Dalian grotesque characters who get even more grotesque in the sort of other world, and they are just so over the top that they are very, very funny. And he does, the characters in that story are just fantastic and very, very strange. I think that it's an important thing with horror, especially when writing for young people, because if it is just relentlessly bleak, then I think that it becomes a little bit, it's not only just sort of a bad time, but also I think a little bit difficult to sort of latch onto as a story. I think that, real life, even when it's at its worst, has always got some strange absurdities in it. And I think that that's always, worth bringing up, even in books for children, and almost especially in books for children. Life isn't any different. Kids experience the same things that we do, just ever so slightly differently. So humor is very, very good for balancing the scale when things get very, very scary.
It's interesting that the audiobook was read by Dawn French. So they
Yes.
they chose a comedian to read,
and she is fantastic.
But sometimes the humour, getting that balance right, is quite hard, isn't it, Chris? Because I get really frustrated if it's too funny. I think they're just not taking my horror seriously enough.
It's interesting because, it's sometimes I think it's these moments of puncturing, isn't it? Puncturing the mood. But sometimes you can do a double bluff and puncture the mood, and then do the kind of the double bluff, and then scare them even more. And I think this is a book by Charles Darwin in the 19th century called The Expression of the Emotions, where it's lots of photographic plates of different emotions. And if you think about it, laughter and screaming look, when we're doing it, extremely similar. So I think it's on the same it's that same emotional frequency, but it's just that different reaction. And there's other ways. It doesn't always have to be humor. I think, in something like Fear Files Hide and Seek, I think the horror, the suspense, etc., is mixed in with lots of action and adventure as well. So there's, I always kind of in terms of genres, I like mixing things up. So I think humor, horror, adventure, mystery, all these things can sit alongside, and they're all almost like kind of notes on a keyboard that we're playing. You can different pitches at different times and stuff. That was a terrible analogy.
In a way, it's
No, it's a very good analogy.
I mean, he's brilliant, isn't he? I think it's more that you can't keep building suspense. You've got to break it. You can't have it all on one note.
Yes, completely. And humour can be important. I think especially for children. I think someone like Jennifer Killick with her Dreadwood books has always held up as being very good at that.
I wonder whether we could just end this bit of our conversation before we bring everybody back together by maybe you've already talked a little bit actually about the range of emotions that you're trying to communicate through your writing. Chris, you've written quite a wide range of genre. So is it the same no matter what you're writing, or are you aware of using different kinds of technique when you're writing, say, Fear Files?
I think Fear Files is a very strange book to write, because when I was writing it, I always try to write page turners. I think that's what I've kind of evolved into, thinking that is the most important thing, because we're 21st century writers, And a lot of children's writing seems to be still written for children 50 years ago. We're actually writing for the leadership who have so many competing demands on their attention, etc. And I think the kind of stories we need to be presenting with, they need to, my ambition every time I write stories, for that young leader to pick up the book and then not be able to put it down until they get to the end. So whether it's, a book like Escape Room or Fear Files Hide and Seek, I'm just wanting to have that page turn enough. With Fear Files Hide and Seek, I was writing it. And I remember going in to talk to my wife and saying, after I was midway through the chapter, going, this is either the absolute scariest thing I've written and no one will publish it because it's too horrifying for kids, or it's not scary at all. Because I had no kind of sense when I was writing it of how it was going to land with the reader, because I think it's very difficult to do that. So it's been nice to actually go out in schools recently after it's come out and actually see it's landing appropriately. But I think it's that matter of hitting them kind of at the right spot to make them read.
Jack, I'm interested in whether you were writing very intentionally for a young audience, or whether you were writing for yourself and just for your own enjoyment. Did you have a sense of audience?
I did a little bit because it was largely inspired by. So my sister's 8 years younger than me. So she was when I wrote it, she was 12, and she had I'd shown her Coraline, and then I'd worried that I'd traumatized her because she was very, very quiet during the film, and then didn't talk much about it afterwards, and then ended up sort of coming round to it, and she wanted to defeat the film, I think, and ended up rewatching it, and now it's one of her favorites. And she very much got into horror around about the same time, and so there was part of me that while we were looking for things that, so much of horror is really, really for adults and exclusively for adults. And so I really wanted to write something for her. It's for both of my siblings, really. My mother is way more of a scaredy cat and way less of a horror fan than my sister. So I was specifically writing for kids like my sister who were feeling a little bit intrepid and feeling a little bit underserved by what was available for them. And so I wanted to make sure so there was a sense of audience definitely in that I had a captive one, and I would go in and read chapters to them before bed, which was maybe an unwise decision. But they did have fun with it, which was a good sign in the writing stage. And then, but it's funny you should say that it's for me as well, because there is so much of me and my life in the story, and things I'm drawing from my own childhood, and including the episode where a character puts their foot through a wasp's nest while playing in a treehouse and gets stung all up their leg and bum, and that did happen to me in real life also. And so there is a sense of maybe I'm working some things out as I'm writing, and sort of exorcising some demons maybe. But yes, I think the key thing was always, there were moments where I thought, am I going too far? There's a scene in which Esme, the villain, is still not in monster form. She's still very much a human, and she is alone with the main character, Gwen, who's 13. And there is a scene of violence between them. And I think that is quite alarming for adult readers, because they read that in a very different way, and in a very real way. And I did wonder if I would get away with writing that into the story. And actually, as it turns out, it didn't flag any concerns, really. That in fact, everybody felt that it was key to the story, and that sense of being, a kid facing insurmountable odds with, where adults are not on your side. So I think that the key was always trying to make sure, don't let the parental impulse steer the story, because I think kids can take so much more than we give them credit for, and they're very, very discerning and resilient people usually.
I mean, if they pick up a book with that cover and it's called Gloam, we have to give them some credit. Absolutely. For knowing what it is that they want to read, and they're not picking it up thinking they're getting a pony story.
Well, the cover specifically, I'm really glad you brought it up. It's the last thing I'll say about it. But when we were looking for covers, we really wanted it to be the kind of, it's pitched for sort of 9 to 12-year-olds, but we really wanted it to be this kind of thing that, a 14 or 15-year-old could read out in public and not feel embarrassed by. And we wanted to make sure that it was the kind of story that looked like it was going to be scary, so that kids who were looking for that sort of thing would sort of know what they were getting themselves into on one hand, but also would feel like, it was taking them seriously. So I'm glad you mentioned the cover.
Well, I'm going to bring everybody back in. You do win the prize for sticking with the costume the longest. We've all discarded ours, but you have got the pirate hat on still.
Yay!
Let's bring back. Well, Laura's still got her lovely hair. Oh, and so has Michelle. It's just Chris and I.
Michelle's set design is just incredible. I wish I'd gone to even half the effort. That's amazing.
Fantastic. So, to begin, did anything, as you were listening to the other writers and poets talking, did anything occur to you that you wanted to ask or comment on?
Do you know what? I'm glad that Jack raised Shirley Jackson. She's one of my favourites. I read everything she's ever written. She's written a really good essay on writing called Garlic in Fiction, which I recommend everyone read because it's brilliant. It sort of tries to explain how she does it. And I thought when I was reading Jack's book, everyone's books are brilliant, by the way. It's been wonderful reading them. I thought, I wonder if he's read The Haunting of Hill House because of the house being kind of a character. But also I wondered about whether you've read The Woman in Black and whether that gave you the idea of using a causeway or whether you know a causeway.
Yes, it was. It's both. It's both, really. It's the. I love The Woman in Black. I've seen the stage show and the film. I haven't actually got around to reading the book, which is kind of pathetic of me. But I
read it. It's brilliant.
I'm desperate to read it. And the causeway is used very, very effectively in the film that I've seen, and but also in real life. When I was a kid, I was kind of obsessed with Lindisfarne, Holy Island, because it has got that causeway, and it's a really, really long one. And the driving across the Lindisfarne, which we do, we go on holiday to Northumberland every now and then, and every time we go, we always take a trip out to Lindisfarne because we love it there. But when I was a kid, the feeling of being in a car, knowing that later on this road will be covered by the sea, and what if we've got the timings wrong and it's going to happen now, and we're going to get stuck out here? That was such a powerful feeling. So that got into the book.
Got to tell you a couple of things about Lindisfarne. It's not really about Halloween, but I had my honeymoon on that Northumberland coast. And we were on Lindisfarne, which is somewhere I know really well. And we did get cut off by the tide, and we were invited to an island wedding. It was amazing. So it was our honeymoon. We were invited to an island wedding. There were shotguns going off in the air and all the shot raining down. And it was just the most amazing experience. But Lindisfarne, that causeway, if you see the old BBC version of Woman in Black, that's where it was filmed as well. So, and I recommend that. I mean, it's probably quite old now, but I recommend going back to that BBC version of The Woman in Black.
The centerpiece scene of 28 Years Later, which came out this year, there's an incredible horror sequence that takes place on the Lindisfarne Causeway. So that was quite surreal to see.
It's horrible.
It's horrible, but it's brilliant.
I have a 15-year-old son who's just getting into the kind of proper horror stuff, but it's great because it means I can now kind of get my books off the shelves that I've always loved, these creepy things, and kind of introduce him to creepiness. But I'm with Christopher actually on suspense. Suspense freaks me out way more. It's why I love Shirley Jackson, actually, is that she just sort of twists reality in this way. There's no gore in it. There's no horror. There's no jump scares. It's just this feeling of dread and unease. And I think that's what's so cool about Halloween in this time of year. It's the darkness. We all get a bit scared, don't we?
Laura, when Jack was talking, he was talking about, partly writing for himself. And I do feel that your story, your collection, it feels very personal. I felt I got to know you through reading your poems. I just felt I was reading about different facets of you. And I wondered whether you could read me that poem, which I now can't find because, here it is. A poem in which I disagree with one of my favourites. Could you tell us about that and read it for us?
I'm a bit self-conscious now about my sound. Can you hear me? Okay. I think earlier.
Don't worry.
Okay. Yes, I did. I did write them kind of for myself in that way. Like I feel like very close to my child self. So if that makes sense. So yeah, there's not a big disconnect between that the poem is called A Poem in Which I Disagree with One of My Favorites. And it has a little quote by Polish poet Wisława Szymborska. Certainty is beautiful, but uncertainty is more beautiful still. I really wish I could love the uncertainty of change, or at least be less afraid of it. If only I knew a spell to turn it softer, so we could wrap it around our shoulders like a shawl, ever-changing colors, and feel a little bit safe.
It's beautiful.
It's a really
isn't
beautiful
it?
poem.
Really
Oh, thank you.
beautiful. Tell us about the poet who you've quoted there.
Oh, I really like her. So she was, I think, a Nobel Prize winner. She's a Polish poet, and I've read her poetry in translation in German and also in English translation, and kind of different versions of the same poems. I don't know Polish, so I wish I could read her in the original. But she's really like I recommend her to everyone because she writes really accessible poetry. Like nothing, even if you don't like poetry, I think you're gonna like her because she's funny and like kind of makes fun of poets as well in her writing, but also really profound and poignant.
Wonderful. I'm definitely going to look up some English translations.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Now, I knew our evening would whiz by, but there is just one more thing for us to do, and that's to make some recommendations to our audience. We've thrown some, we've flashed some books up here and there, but one Halloween read that you think is an absolute must. Chris, what's yours?
I'm going to go with, this is definitely for adults, I'm going to go with Mark Danielski's The House of Leaves, which is genuinely one of the most terrifying things that I've ever read. And it is not a book to read in bed at night, only because of the typography, because at times the words do some crazy things. And when I was actually writing Fear Files Hide and Seek, this actually became a touchstone for discussing some of the ways in which we're going to present the evidence in the Fear Files. So I will recommend House of Leaves.
I've always followed up on your recommendations, Chris, and I've never been disappointed. So
I apologise in advance, Nick.
I'm
going
halfway through
straight
it, and
for
it's terrifying. It's so good. It's so good.
Excellent. Michelle, what are you going to recommend?
I'm going to write these down. I want to read them. The Children of Green Noah.
Yes.
When I was a kid, which was a very long time ago, the BBC, I think it was the BBC, in my memory it was the BBC, kind of made this a children's series. And it's really creepy. It's really good. It's like, I love anything where there's a sense of a place, like the house in Jack's book and in Christopher's book, the campsite and this village, this abandoned village. I love stuff like that. And Green Noah is like this old house, and these kids go to stay there, but the ghosts of the kids who lived there centuries ago are there, and it's just like fun and creepy, and I just loved reading this as a kid, and I love reading it now. And it's one of those thin books that you can kind of read in a couple of sittings and just get all atmospheric and think about creepy rocking horses and things like that.
And it's a real place. I mean, Lucy Boston lived in a house that was like a Norman manor house. And Jack, it's not so far. I'm not giving away your address, but it's not so far from where you live. It's in that bit of Cambridgeshire.
Oh, really?
That is close to Suffolk, and you could easily go there. I'm not sure if the family still live there, but you could by appointment go and have a look around. So
I'll go knock on the door.
yes, you should look out for that. It's just as you get to the top of the M11 before it turns into whatever it is, the A1 or something. So
Awesome.
yes, great choice. What's yours, Jack?
Well, I recommended something adult earlier, so I won't. I'll try and redeem myself. There's a story I read while I was writing Gloam, actually, that I think definitely had started to have a sort of tonal knock-on effect. It's a wonderful story called Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. Brilliant for sort of Halloween reading for children. The way that she draws not only grieving children, but also sort of very fun, eccentric, silly children. I think her authorial voice is very, very strong, and I think it's a really, really lovely, cozy read. It's also set around about Halloween on a pumpkin farm with like sort of evil scarecrows and things like that. So very autumnal and perfect for this time of year.
Excellent. And Laura, do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes. So I have Pretty Monsters by Kelly Link, which is a short story collection. And actually, Kelly Link also has a link to Shirley Jackson, because she wrote like her version of The Summer People, the short story. Like she wrote a kind of fantasy version of that. Kelly Link, I can really recommend all her books, but Pretty Monsters is quite a scary, spooky one. And if I can cheat and say a second one, I've just finished a book called Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher, which is like a fairy tale retelling of Snow White, but with quite like creepy and horror-y elements. She's also really great. T. Kingfisher.
That sounds delicious to me. So look, we have lots of fabulous recommendations. Our event is almost at an end, but not quite, because Laura's going to read one final poem. She's going to summon the season for us with her summoning spell. And then we just have some music at the end. And because it is the end of the event, the glasses are coming off, the headdress is going back on. And there we go. It's over to you, Laura.
Thank you so much. That was so much fun. Summoning spell. Under a waning moon, send a familiar to gather the shadow of a midnight fox. 11 drops of daybreak caught in 7 different cobwebs, with apologies for disturbing the spiders. The essence of a chimera's sigh, though a disgruntled cow's one will do in a pinch. Add the creak of a door that opens by itself. Stir well. Wait. Then, on one of the year's greyest days, when fog nibbles at the edges of everything, observe when a shadow moves through your thoughts. Hold the potion aloft and say, from the depth of night and the shades of day, bring me a joy that isn't afraid. Then, when they arrive, make sure to offer them a cup of your darkest brew. I'm going to show the dark brew. Thank you so much.